All right, we just got done saving our data or downloading our blocks that we're going to be using, and I've already launched AutoCAD. But what I want to do is I want to look at our template that we created, and we're going to start a brand new file with this template. So at this point, it's double click. That's all I'm doing, and it's going to create a brand new file using all those settings from the template to create a brand new drawing. You see right up here it says drawing number 1. So the very first thing I'm going to do, some type save as is at the command prompt. You can also just click on that save button. Since the file hasn't been named yet, it's okay. You can click save or save as, it really doesn't matter. But this drawing is going to be A102. Okay. And I can actually right click on where it says layout 2 and delete that one. And I'm going to right click again on layout 1 and rename it, and this is, make it all caps, ceiling and lighting plan. It's a little more than that, but this will do for now. Up here in my list of layers, I'm going to click here, and I want to make sure that my Xref layer is my current layer. So I'm about to reference a file in here. So G-Xref is my current layer. I'm going to open my list of documents that I have over here in my Explorer window. I'm going to highlight sheet A101, and I'm going to click and hold on to it with my right mouse button, not my left one. So this is my right mouse button, right click, drag and drop onto the drawing window. And at this point, if the notion says insertion point, if you do not get this menu, and down here at the bottom it says insertion point, you used your left mouse button and not your right mouse button when you did your drag and drop. At this point, cancel, undo, and drag again. So if you try to insert first, it's going to break things and you will not be able to do what we're trying to do right now. I want to create an Xref, and it's just going to snap an Xref right there, and hopefully when you click on your reference, and I've got the grip right there at that insertion or the intersection of those grid lines. I'm going to left click on that grip. I'm going to click in my command window and type 00. Because if I don't click in the command line down here and I type 00, that 00 will be relative to my mouse coordinates. Now 0 inches in an X direction and 0 inches in a Y direction relative to my mouse coordinates is where my mouse is. If I click in the command line and type 00, those coordinates become absolute coordinates. And that's the origin point of the drawing. I just want to make sure these things are lined up. And they are. So I'll click, and here we are. Everything looks good. Now this is just me. It's a personal thing. I do not like seeing that graph paper grid on there. So I'm going to move my mouse down, turn my grid mode off. And what I need to do now is I need to make sure that the scale I'm currently working at here matches what I've done everywhere else. So I'm going to click on this 1:1. I'm going to change it to 1/4 inch equals a foot because that's the scale I've been using everywhere else. When I did that, you should have seen the length of your dashes change. That's totally normal behavior. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. Okay. So this is the first thing that we did, is we referenced in, we didn't insert, but we linked the AutoCAD file, our floor plan file, into our reflected ceiling plan. Every company does it slightly different. Some people do everything in one file. Some companies do it the way that I'm showing you how to do it right here, which is to use reference files and bring them back and forth. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my current layer. I apologize for this taking so long. It's the downside of working in a virtual environment. G-viewport, so it's my viewport layer. And now I come over and I left click where it says ceiling and lighting plan. Now the reason that I changed to my viewport layer before I clicked and to this paper space layout is now the viewport is automatically on the viewport layer. If I had not changed my active layer before I went to paper space, then my viewport would have been on my Xref layer. That's a little here. That's neither here nor there right now. Obviously, the page layout isn't quite right, so I'm going to right-click, Page Setup Manager, and just like we did to Layout Sheet A101, I'll click Modify. And even this information, we could save this information in the template, but I just want you guys to know how to do this because you're probably going to be doing this a lot. Select our printer. It's an AutoCAD PDF. I'm going to change the paper size from ANSI Full Bleed A to ANSI Full Bleed B, but I want 17 by 11 because I want this spot right here to be shown in landscape mode. My plot style table I want to use as monochrome. Everything else stays exactly the same. And click OK. And we're done here and click Close. All right. And now I'm going to type XR at the command prompt. This will bring up my Xref dialog. It will also show me what drawings are currently referenced into this drawing. And you can see this A102, this is my current file. This A101, now you see when I highlighted it here in the menu, it also highlighted down here in the drawing area. That's normal behavior. This A101, this is in this drawing. And my title block is actually inside A101. So that's why the 101 is highlighted, even though I'm selecting the title block here. I'm going to right-click, and I can come down and say Attach. Now, let me back up. Before you click on Attach, make sure that you have not double-clicked. You are not actually inside your paper space viewport. If you're in, remember how I said that you can tell if you're inside paper space because that pink line is bold, and you can see that little indicator here, and as I move my mouse, you can see my crosshairs begin to disappear. Wow, come on. Wake up. There we go. You can see the crosshairs disappear. I have no idea what it's doing right now, but it's taking a while and I don't like it. Make sure that you're not in this position. Make sure that if your crosshairs are not appearing when your mouse cursor is outside the boundaries of this viewport, double click. Make sure that your crosshairs are visible. That way we're actually in paper space. And a note on clicking in the viewport and selecting the viewport and double clicking on the viewport. To double click in the viewport, make sure that your crosshairs are inside the viewport. If I double click now where my mouse is, that is double clicking on the viewport. If I want to select my viewport, I will left click on the boundary of the viewport. And of course, double clicking outside the viewport is make sure I double click and I'm outside the viewport out here. So those are your differences, and they're kind of crucial. So back in my references dialog, highlight your title block. Now, if you do not have in your project directory that you're actively working from, I don't care whether this is on your personal hard drive or whether it's on the lab computer or whether you're working off of a flash drive, it doesn't matter. All this data needs to be in the same folder. You should have the blocks that we created as part of our class exercises, the ceiling and electrical blocks that we just downloaded. Here's those Craig's blocks, the furnishing blocks and appliances and pool tables and baby grand pianos and all that stuff. All that's in there. We have A101, A102 that we saved just a moment ago. We have our template that we built in class has been saved here. Our UNT title block has been saved here, and our the image that we need for our title block. All this data is in one directory. And you'll notice I do not have version 1, version 2, version 3. I don't have schemes. I only have the stuff that I'm actively using in this folder. All of it in one folder. This part's kind of critical, especially as you guys doing exercises, as you move between a lab computer and personal computer or IT checked out computer, that kind of a thing. That really makes a difference to have all this in the same folder location. Okay, back to AutoCAD. Right click on the UNT title block, come down and say attach. This is normal. I'm going to click on uniform scale, but I'm going to specify the scale here. I'm going to change that to 0.5. I don't know if you guys remember, when we created our title block, we created it to be, what was it, 22 inches by 34 inches. Okay, the reason that I did that is that it's a larger scale of drawing, or it's a larger sheet size, but also if you scale it down by half, it's 11 by 17, which means that you can print out all your documents at half size, but you're still to scale, and you can use an architectural scale on it. That's kind of a handy little thing. Path type, we can leave it as relative path, or change it to no path. Either one is okay. I would suggest against using full path because that's when things AutoCAD really pays attention to where the documents are saved, what computer you're saving them on, all that kind of thing. Relative path means that AutoCAD is gonna try and keep track of where these various files are saved. No path, it's in this case for these classroom assignments, it's the absolute easiest thing to remember because all of our documents are in the exact same folder location, and that's why we're using no path. So I'll click OK. And it's thinking, and it's thinking. And it's like watching paint dry. There we go. And at this point, this is just a matter of eyeballing. There is an actual command line we can type in to get the exact value. For those of you who really feel that you have to know, we're not inserting at these dash lines. We're inserting here at the border between the gray and the white. There's nothing to snap on. But if you zoom in close enough and left click, it's fine. For those of you who absolutely have to know what this variable is, and it's handy only in a few circumstances. It's open parentheses. Pay attention down at the command line. GETVAR, and a space, a double quote, LIMMIN, and then another quote, and a closed parentheses. That's sort of the hidden. Get var means get a variable. You're instructing AutoCAD to get a variable, and LIMMIN is the minimum extents of the limits for this particular for Paperspace. And in this case, in Paperspace, the way it's currently configured, it's the bottom left-hand corner, that exact border right there. We'll press Enter, and it should lock in right there. So if you don't want to type all that stuff in, you can just zoom in and you can eyeball it, and we're so close. If you eyeball it and you're off a hair, it's not going to matter. The distance between this dashed line and the edge of the paper is either a 1/16 or a 32nd of an inch. So if you eyeball it and you're off by a hair, it's not a big deal. So zoom extents, that's Z return, E return at the command prompt, or if you double click your scroll wheel, that's a way to zoom back out. I'm going to use my mouse. I'm going to select my viewport. I'm going to grab this grip, if it'll let me. There we go. And I'm just going to bring it up here. And if it snaps on the end of this part of the border, it really doesn't matter to me. That's fine. And I will move this piece as soon as my mouse comes back. There we go. We move that down to that endpoint. There we go. I'm going to minimize my references dialog. I'm going to right-click, anchor it on the right-hand side of the screen. So it's just going to live right over here now. All right. I'm going to double-click and enter my viewport. Remember, you see how that line got pink and kind of bold? I'm going to come down here. I'm going to click on this funny little, all this stuff is trying to cache and view and change. But this strange little variable, this is actually the ratio of the scale that you're at in percentage points. So it makes absolutely no sense right now because we're not working at a usable scale. But I'm going to change this to a 1/4 of an inch because we've been working at a 1/4 inch for all this. So if I left click on a 1/4 inch, now I'm zooming in to actually represent a 1/4 inch equals a foot. All right, I'm going to use my regular pan command, and I just want to get him positioned sort of nicely on the screen up here at the top half. Okay, I'm done. I've moved him into position. He's at the scale that he needs to be. So if this is my, oh God, come back. There we go. So if this sets my scale. This is something a little different. That's part of the scale factor right there. This icon right here, that lock, selecting the view, it says selected viewports are not locked. I want to lock this viewport so I cannot accidentally change it. Left click. You can see that lock turned blue. So now when I try and pan around, even though I'm still inside my viewport, the whole page changes. This is actually a very, very handy tool. Okay, I'm going to double click once I can get everything to come back up. Double click outside so I can manipulate my viewport. I don't have to make this smaller, but I'm going to. So I'm going to shrink him up to about there. That looks good. Now, some of you may notice I've got this little drop. I've got the ability to click on that point right there. This is just another grip that AutoCAD, it's the 2018 version of AutoCAD, will give you this option to click here in the middle. There's also this little down pointing arrow. If I click on this, I can also set my viewport scale here. But now that I have it locked, I don't think it'll let me change it. So now that I have this set up and everything's ready to go, I will save my drawing. So we've created the new sheet, and we've done a little bit of sheet layout. The rest of it, it's going to be the end of this video. I'm going to show you some other things in the next one.